Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this pre-match press conference. Ensure you have a microphone in your hand before you ask a question, and we will start this time. Thank you.
Andrew, how hard has it been to keep motivation in the group after what's transpired over the past few days?
Yeah, we've got a pretty sort of devastated group, it's fair to say. I mean, the motivation is you're still playing a World Cup game for your country, so we've got to plan and prepare accordingly. It's a little bit of a rare situation we're in. We're usually alive come to these points in time, but not to be, and yeah, we put ourselves in this position, so hopefully Oman we can prepare and go and do the job there.
Only able to take 2 wickets in each of the past 2 games, one of those in the power play. Has that sort of been your biggest issue, and how do you sort of rectify that?
I think across all 3 phases of the game, we've had some areas for improvement, and to single out the bowling, I think it's easy to do that when you don't have the impact that we have had, but if we had to put some more runs on the board against Zimbabwe, 4 for 29 in the power play, so there's some sort of mitigating circumstances there to the reason why we're not where we should be in the tournament. But yeah, I think it would be unfair to lump that onto the bowling group and those players there.
I guess on the batting, there's been a shift towards power hitting and that aggressive batting since the last World Cup. I've watched a lot of it, and it's been incredibly good to watch at times. Do you think it's sort of been a little bit exposed here in these conditions, and do you look to sort of tweak that approach going forward?
I mean, the easier answer to say is it has been exposed because of the performances that we've put out. If you look at the last 12 months and the way that we've played and the way that batting group's gone about it, it has nuance to it as well. So I think it's unfair to say that we put all our eggs in the basket of power when you talk about some of the quality players we've got in there, and Cameron Green and Travis Head and Josh Inglis and Mitch Marsh, and I name those players because they've played Test cricket. So I think if you're playing Test cricket, you do have the skills to combat most conditions. So I think people will easily say that we invested in the power, but we felt like we had the balance across that batting unit to get the job done in these conditions, and probably the only significant shift that we've made in terms of promoting power, if you want to call it that, was Tim David at number 4, and he had his challenges coming into this tournament on the back of injury, and unfortunately couldn't get going in those 2 opportunities. And I think that's really the tail of the tape, is that we've had a lot of players not performing at once, which for this group's been rare. And as I said, you think back across the journey, we've always had 2 key contributors with the bat that's able to give us the totals. And on the bowling front, it's easy to look at what you haven't got here, and people have done that. I've sort of read a little bit in the last couple of days, and people have looked at what we haven't got here, and yeah, that does destabilise you to some degree, but the guys that have had the opportunity here are good enough, and that's probably where we leave this tournament, is with the knowledge that we were good enough, and we're incredibly disappointed that we weren't able to take those opportunities and get ourselves to the next phase of the tournament.
It's probably been unfortunate that the BBL kind of worked against you in some respects. You had the David injury, and then Alice got injured towards the end of it. A few players lost form through that tournament. Do you sort of, I guess you want them playing this format leading in, but it kind of disrupted the lead in a little bit. Yeah,
I suppose for every instance where you've got a player that may have a setback in that, you've got a tournament where the competition's strong with those players playing in it. So, and there's people that were performing well in that tournament as such as well. So I think you can look at it when it doesn't go your way. It's a little bit like into the Test summer. We played a couple of guys in Shield cricket leading into that, and we lost them due to injury. Yeah, we like our players playing our domestic competition, and I think T20 running into a T20 World Cup is advantageous as a whole.
Yeah. Hello, Coach. You just mentioned it's kind of a rare situation to be in, not really used to it. What would you put this situation down to? There were injuries at a very crucial moment. Marsh also lost a few games, some combinations not working out. What would you attribute this current situation to, Coach?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to put it in the basket of excuses, and putting it definitely on injuries. As I said, I think we had the personnel to be able to navigate through this part of the tournament. There are unfortunate setbacks that do create conversations, and we obviously brought Steve Smith in to cover the top order there, so we had to make some changes to our squads based upon that. But to sit here and put your finger right on exactly at this point in time, I think that'll take some time to sort of process as we exit out of the tournament, go home and give ourselves some time to review how we come into the tournament, review how it went within the tournament. So all those things will take a little bit of time, but yeah, I'm not here sitting using injuries and moving parts as an excuse. We've had those challenges before in many formats and been able to combat them. So yeah, I think it's a little bit deeper than that.
Right. Coach, after you finish the game against Oman, the next chapter that you look forward to in the T20 format becomes the 2028 T20 World Cup, which you host. Do you think Cricket Australia recharts its strategy with the current set of players, and also picking players from the talent pool down under? Do you think that process will begin?
I think anytime you're picking a squad, you're picking the best players that you think can do the job at that point in time. And as was mentioned earlier, the build into this tournament in which we had, and the style of cricket, and the balance of our batting unit, the balance of our bowling attack, we felt really confident coming into this tournament. So I think the same process you go through, and we've got a strong domestic BBL competition there. We've got guys that play in the PSL, we've got guys that play in the BBL. So the only thing in the sort of next 12 months is we'll have a lack of T20 cricket, as is the way of the schedule. So they won't really ramp up until pretty much that World Cup year, which is similar to what happened in this cycle. So there'll be limited T20 international opportunities. I think we go to Bangladesh and we've got a series against England, so we've got 6 in the sort of next period of time. So that's probably not enough to start to sort of build out what your direction is. I think that'll come a little bit closer. But yeah, as I said, I think the decisions that we made, the squad that we picked, we've got a room full of players there that are incredibly disappointed knowing that they were good enough to progress, and we just got to own the fact that we haven't. And yeah, there's in all 3 facets of the game. If you look at it, you can find margins and small margins that would have got us over the line. And even the other night, 8 overs in, 100 plus runs on the board, none down, and then to lose 8 for 80 in those 12 overs meant that we couldn't put the pressure on Sri Lanka. So you can look at each game in isolation, but as a collective, we haven't been good enough.
Yeah, Coach. Obviously, it's going to be a disappointed trip over here, and you play an associate nation like Oman. So obviously, there would be any lack of motivation going against a team like Oman tomorrow. And there have been obviously some experts and former captains talking about the selection. So would you like to comment on the team selection after the obviously exist? Had you qualified to the next round, they wouldn't have been saying the same thing. But now that you have not been able to go to the second stage, Super 8, there have been obviously talks about the selection issues. So those 2 things.
Yeah, so I'll start with the Oman game. There won't be any lack of motivation within that. Last couple of days has obviously been a lot of emotions flying around, and our job as a coaching staff and as a playing contingent is to be able to zero in on the game, and it's an opportunity to play for Australia. It's also an opportunity. No World Cup groups are ever the same. There's always a change here or there. So this group's got an opportunity together to finish off the journey that they started a long time ago, and we had 19 games running in, and there was some incredible performances within that. So there'll be motivation to finish the job, albeit short of where we want it to be. So we've got one more World Cup game, and we'll be zeroed in on that. In terms of selection, I think debate around selection is always great. There's always differing opinions, and from the outside, and sometimes the people on the outside don't understand, what the moving parts are and the conversations are on the inside. And it's fair for them to critique us at this point in time. I have no objections to that. They're entitled to their opinions, and what I will say is that this group, and I'm not defending selectors here, but the group as a whole has made some really good decisions across a period of time, and we feel like that we were making the right decisions, asking ourselves the right questions. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get the performances that we wanted, so those people are entitled to critique that, and we're incredibly disappointed with where we're at. And I think probably the critiquing from people back home and people weighing into selection is around disappointment as well, that they thought this group could have gone further in the tournament, and we truly believe that as well. So everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Andrew, you mentioned there were some emotions flying around. What have those conversations been like, and have they in any way kind of helped you unpick what happened in the Zimbabwe and Sri Lanka matches?
I think any time you're in that emotive state, it's not looking backwards, it's looking forwards. And the next game is Oman, so we've got to get our heads right around that. We've got to plan and prepare against the opponent that presents. And I think the time to start to look back over at what happened will be when we exit the shores here, and that's when you can really probably get a little bit more clarity. I think emotion sometimes gets in the way of it, so we can remove the emotion, get to playing, and then we can start to really unpick what that looks like and what the future looks like. And I think it's unfair to say that a lot of these players wouldn't be in that next phase. I think the easy option is to say, well, that didn't work there. These players are incredibly talented. They're very good T20 players, and some of them are some of the best we've seen. And unfortunately, we all had fail moments all too often together. And as I said, that's rare for this group. It's not an excuse, but we have to own that.
As you mentioned earlier on, it's extremely rare for an Australian team to lose, to leave a tournament at this stage. But maybe if you look back a little bit, that Pakistan series, there were a little bit of, there were obviously concerns there. What did you do at that stage to try and course correct for the World Cup, and how did those efforts go?
Yeah, we had a very condensed period to prepare for that tour, and I think if you looked at going in the day before for a Pakistan series, and and this is not excuses, we had the BBL finals, we had some injured players, so it was very difficult to get the World Cup group together there to start to plan and prepare, and we were under prepared for that series. We didn't improve across those 3 games, but there was different personnel, different challenges, and the surfaces in Pakistan, people say they're similar to here. I think they're slightly different. So yeah, that's where I see that take of it.
Andrew, I know there's only a small crossover between the Test squad and this squad, but did you, in hindsight, I guess it's a wonderful thing, but we all underestimate the focus and the attention on the Ashes over the T20 World Cup, which these other teams have been fully locked into for some time?
We've been fully locked into this for a period of time. This is one of our priorities, and I have heard that sort of narrative that T20 World Cups don't matter to us. So I think all that is a response to the performances of Australian cricket teams in these competitions. I think we won the one in 2021, and we haven't been as successful since that point in time. And the expectations on the Australian cricket team are high, and rightfully so. But to sit back and say that we're prioritising other formats or other versions of the game and not the T20 World Cup is entirely false. Have we had some challenges on the back of injuries from players on the back of Test series? That's always something we deal with, and every nation has to deal with it. And it's very difficult to be high performing across three formats, and I think that's been one of the strengths of this group. We have done that for a long period of time, and we focus on every format. We prioritise every format, and at times things cross over and definitely get in the way in terms of injuries and workload and those types of things. But we're gearing up to have those players that have been mentioned that aren't here to be here. Unfortunately, they weren't able to make this tournament. And does that make a difference to your performance? In some ways, yes. But as I said, I truly believe that the players that were here were good enough, and it shouldn't be about the players that we're missing. It should be looking at the performances of what we've been able to put out here, and we're disappointed in those, and we need to own those, and the critique is fair and reasonable.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you.
No problems. Thanks, Nancy.